To our amazing viewers at Cheating Tales Lab, we'd love to hear, which part of the world are you joining us from? Let us know. Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1. The Perfect Facade. Jonathan Gordon stood in his office overlooking the Seattle skyline, reviewing security protocols for a tech client. 15 years ago, he'd left military intelligence to build something legitimate, something that would keep him home with his family. Gordon Security Consulting had become one of the Northwest's premier firms, and he'd done it alongside his business partner, Russell Christian. Jonathan, got a minute? Russell appeared in the doorway, his practiced smile firmly in place. At 42, Russell looked like he'd stepped from a corporate catalog. Tailored suit, perfect hair, calculated charm. What's up? That Port Angeles contract. I'm thinking we lowball the bid, get our foot in the door. Russell leaned against the desk. Could be huge for expansion. Jonathan frowned. Lowballing compromises quality. That's not how we operate. It's called strategy, John. Sometimes you need to think bigger. Russell's smile never wavered, but something cold flickered in his eyes. This wasn't the first disagreement. Over the past 6 months, Russell had pushed for aggressive expansion, cutting corners, taking on clients Jonathan's instincts warned against. The man who'd once shared Jonathan's vision of building a reputation on integrity now seemed fixated on profit margins and growth charts. I'll review the numbers, Jonathan said neutrally. That evening, Jonathan drove to his daughter's soccer practice. Faith Gordon, 8 years old with her mother's dark eyes and his stubborn determination, scored twice during scrimmage. His wife Leslie, a pediatric nurse at Swedish Medical Center, arrived just in time to see the second goal. How was work? Leslie asked as they watched Faith high-five her teammates. Interesting. Russell's pushing another questionable deal. Leslie's expression tightened. She'd never warmed to Russell, something Jonathan attributed to her sharp instincts about people. You trust your gut, Jonathan. It's kept us safe all these years. Their son Derek, 14 and perceptive beyond his years, looked up from his phone. Dad, is Mr. Christian still coming to dinner this weekend? Unless I can find a good excuse, Jonathan muttered. Mom doesn't like him, Faith announced, climbing into the car. Faith, Leslie warned gently, but didn't deny it. That night, after the kids were asleep, Jonathan sat in his home office reviewing company finances. Something nagged at him, small discrepancies in accounts Russell managed exclusively. Nothing provable, just patterns that didn't sit right. He'd spent years in intelligence learning to trust those instincts. His phone buzzed. Alexander Banks, his old Marine buddy who now ran a private investigation firm in Portland. Coffee tomorrow? Have something you should see. Jonathan stared at the message. Alex didn't reach out unless it was serious. Morning. 0800, usual spot. He closed his laptop and looked out at his quiet neighborhood. Homes with lights and windows, families settling in for the night. He'd built this life carefully, methodically, creating the stability he'd never had growing up in foster care, giving his kids the childhood he'd dreamed of. Whatever Alex had found, whatever was coming, Jonathan Gordon was ready to protect it. Chapter 2. Shadows and Revelations. The coffee shop in Pike Place Market was crowded enough for privacy. Alexander Banks arrived exactly on time. Marines didn't break the habit. The two men had served together in intelligence, trusting each other with their lives on operations most people would never know existed. You look worried, Jonathan observed. That's because you should be. Alex slid a thin folder across the table. 3 weeks ago, Mandy Spencer, FBI agent, friend from my Army days, asked me to look into Russell Christian. Quietly, Jonathan's pulse quickened. Why? His name popped up in an investigation. Peripherally at first. Shipping manifests that don't match cargo weights. Warehouse leases under shell companies. Meetings with some serious bad actors. Jonathan opened the folder. Photos showed Russell with Ricardo Brady, a man Jonathan recognized from intelligence briefings. Arms dealer with ties to South American cartels. Another photo, Russell shaking hands with Francisco Pierce, a Port Authority official currently under federal investigation for corruption. Jesus Christ. There's more. Alex's voice dropped. 2 weeks ago, a whistleblower was scheduled to testify about illegal weapons shipments through Seattle ports. He died in a car accident the night before. Brake line failure. Investigators ruled it an accident, but Mandy's not convinced. You think Russell. I think Russell Christian isn't who you think he is. That security firm? Perfect cover for moving shipments, accessing secure facilities, manipulating manifests. You've got credentials, government contracts, legitimate business fronts. Jonathan's mind raced. Every suspicious decision, every questionable client, every time Russell had pushed him toward expansion, it all crystallized into a horrifying picture. He's been using our company to facilitate illegal arms trafficking, Jonathan said flatly. That's Mandy's theory. She wanted to warn you before things escalate. If they move on Russell, you could be caught in the investigation unless you distance yourself now. I need evidence. Concrete proof before I make any moves. Jonathan, these people don't play around. That whistleblower is dead. If Russell suspects you know, I understand the stakes. Jonathan's voice carried the weight of 100 dangerous operations. But I won't abandon what I built. I'll handle this. Alex studied him. I know that look. You're not planning to just walk away. Would you? No. But I'd be careful. Russell's got resources, connections. The kind that make problems disappear. That afternoon, Jonathan returned to the office to find Russell meeting with a potential client. At least, that's what his calendar claimed. Through the glass walls, Jonathan watched his partner's animated conversation with a man whose expensive suit couldn't hide his criminal bearing. Derek called while Jonathan sat in his car outside the office building. Dad, when are you coming home? Soon, buddy. Everything okay? Yeah, just wondering. We're having tacos. A pause. Dad, that thing you always say about trusting your gut. Yeah. I saw Mr. Christian's car at our house today during lunch. Mom wasn't home. She was at work. He was just sitting there, parked across the street for like 10 minutes, then drove away. Ice crystallized in Jonathan's veins. Did he see you? I don't think so. I was upstairs. Is something wrong? No, buddy. Thanks for telling me. I'll be home in 20 minutes. Jonathan hung up and immediately called Alex. Russell was staking out my house today, while my family was home. That's a threat. That's reconnaissance. Jonathan started the engine. He's either suspicious or he's preparing something. I need to know which. What do you need? Access to everything Mandy has. And I need surveillance on Russell, starting now. Every move, every call, every meeting. Jonathan, if you're planning what I think you're planning, I'm planning to protect my family and dismantle whatever operation Russell's running. In that order. That night, Jonathan didn't tell Leslie about Russell's surveillance. He wouldn't frighten her until he understood the full scope of the threat. Instead, he installed additional security cameras around their property, checked all locks twice, and moved his service weapon from the safe to his nightstand. Derek noticed. The boy was too observant for his own good. We're okay, right, Dad? Derek asked from his bedroom doorway. Jonathan met his son's eyes. Leslie's perceptive gaze reflected there. Yes, and we're going to stay that way. I promise. But as Jonathan lay awake that night, listening to his house settle, watching shadows move across the ceiling, he knew promises meant nothing against men like Russell Christian. Only action mattered. Only staying 3 steps ahead. And Jonathan Gordon had spent 15 years mastering exactly that. Chapter 3, The Escape. 3 nights later, everything changed. Derek couldn't sleep. His AP history essay was due tomorrow, and he'd been researching Cold War espionage tactics when he heard voices outside. At 2 a.m., voices didn't belong in their quiet subdivision. He crept to his window. 2 dark SUVs were parked 3 houses down, engines running, lights off. 4 men emerged, and even from this distance, Derek could see they weren't police. Wrong gear, wrong bearing, wrong everything. His father had taught him to observe, to trust his instincts. Derek had grown up around his dad's military buddies, heard enough stories to recognize operators when he saw them. These men moved with lethal purpose toward his house. Derek didn't hesitate. He ran to his parents' room and shook his father awake. Dad, wake up, he whispered urgently. We have to go. Don't make a sound. Jonathan was alert instantly, the way he always was, muscle memory from years of training. What is it? Armed men. Outside. Coming here. Jonathan didn't question, didn't hesitate. He trusted his son's judgment because he'd taught the boy to be certain before sounding alarms. Get your sister. Quietly. While Derek woke Faith, Jonathan grabbed his go-bag. Always packed, always ready, and his weapon. Leslie was already pulling on clothes, her nurse's training making her efficient in crisis. What's happening? Faith asked, confused and frightened. We're going on an adventure, Jonathan said calmly, lifting his daughter. But we need to be very, very quiet. Can you do that? Faith nodded against his shoulder, trusting completely. They crept downstairs in darkness. Through the kitchen window, Jonathan spotted a figure approaching the back door. They had maybe 30 seconds. The family moved through the garage, into Jonathan's Tahoe. He'd backed it in, always, for exactly this kind of situation. They strapped in silently, and Jonathan started the engine, immediately pulling into the street. Look behind now, Derek said urgently, pointing back at their house window. Jonathan's heart stopped. In the upstairs window, Derek's room, laser sights swept across the walls. Red dots dancing through darkness, searching. Then muzzle flashes lit the interior as suppressors coughed. Bullets shredding furniture where his son should have been sleeping. Get down. Jonathan accelerated hard, taking the corner at speed. Behind them, the SUV's headlights blazed to life. Leslie had her phone out. I'm calling 911. They'll be gone before police arrive. This is professional. Jonathan's mind raced through possibilities. Russell sent them. How do you know? Because I've been investigating him for the past 3 days. He found out. Derek's voice was steady despite the terror. Dad, they're following us. Jonathan checked the mirror. Both SUVs were gaining, splitting to flank him. He couldn't outrun them in a family vehicle, couldn't lead them on a chase through residential streets, endangering neighbors. He needed an advantage. Jonathan yanked the wheel hard, threading through a construction zone. Orange barrels scattered, creating obstacles for the pursuing vehicles. He killed his headlights, taking a sharp right into an industrial area he knew from security contracts. Everyone stayed down and quiet. He navigated by memory. Warehouses, loading docks, chain-link fencing. The SUV's headlights swept through the darkness, searching. Jonathan pulled behind a loading dock, killing the engine, windows down to listen. Footsteps. Radio chatter. Lost visual. Splitting up to search. Faith whimpered softly. Leslie held her close, hand over their daughter's mouth, not restricting but comforting. Derek was watching his father, learning, understanding this wasn't the time for questions. Jonathan's phone vibrated. Alex, Mandy Spencer says arrest warrant issued for Russell tonight. Must have gotten tipped off. Are you safe? Jonathan typed one-handed. Negative. Under attack. Need extraction. The response was immediate. Location? Jonathan sent coordinates. Family with me. Armed pursuit. Copy. 15 minutes. Stay alive. 15 minutes might as well be forever. Footsteps approached their position. Through the Tahoe's mirror, Jonathan saw a figure rounding the corner, weapon raised. He squeezed Leslie's hand once, a signal they'd established years ago. Stay ready. The gunman swept past, focused on other hiding spots. Jonathan waited until the man was 10 feet past, then moved. He exited silently, years of training making him a ghost. The gunman never heard him coming. Jonathan's arm wrapped around the man's throat, applying pressure to the carotid. 7 seconds. The man went limp. Jonathan dragged him behind a dumpster, taking his radio and weapon, a nice FN 5.7, expensive hardware. Russell wasn't cheap with his killers. The radio crackled. Section B clear. Moving to C. Copy. Another voice responded. Jonathan climbed back into the Tahoe. They're moving away. We've got a window. He started the engine and rolled slowly, headlights still off, using the building's shadows. They emerged onto an access road just as a police cruiser turned the corner. Alex is doing, no doubt. Jonathan flashed his brights twice. The cruiser's lights came on, and suddenly they had an escort. The SUVs wouldn't risk engaging police directly. They drove to the FBI field office where Mandy Spencer was waiting. Mid-40s, sharp-eyed, with the bearing of someone who'd seen too much but never stopped caring. Jonathan Gordon? Mandy Spencer. Your friend Alex gave me the heads up. Come on, let's get your family somewhere safe. Inside, while Leslie comforted Faith and Derek gave a detailed account to an agent, Mandy laid out what they knew. Russell Christian is the linchpin in a major arms trafficking operation. We've been building a case for 8 months. Tonight, we moved to arrest him, but someone tipped him off, probably Francisco Pierce, the Port Authority official. Russell panicked and decided to eliminate potential witnesses. His own partner, Jonathan, said coldly, "And my children. You were a liability. You had access, knowledge, credibility. If you testified, you'd destroy him. I don't plan to just testify." Jonathan's voice carried steel. I plan to destroy him anyway. Mandy studied him carefully. We need Russell alive to roll up his network. Then you better catch him before I do. Jonathan. He sent killers to my home. Tried to murder my family while they slept. I've seen men like Russell before, protected by money, lawyers, connections. Even if you catch him, he'll walk or cut a deal. This is the FBI. We'll handle it. Jonathan stood. No. You'll try. I'll succeed. Keep my family safe, Agent Spencer. That's all I need from you. I can't let you obstruct. You can't stop me either. I spent 15 years in military intelligence doing things that would make Russell's operation look like a lemonade stand. He made this personal. He involved my children. Mandy's expression shifted. She'd read his file, knew his background. What are you planning? Something Russell will never see coming. Because he thinks I'm just a security consultant who got lucky. He doesn't know who I really am. Jonathan turned to his family. Derek met his eyes with understanding beyond his years. Leslie nodded once. She knew her husband, knew what he was capable of when protecting those he loved. We'll stay here tonight, Jonathan said. Tomorrow, I go hunting. Chapter 4. The Hunted Becomes the Hunter. The FBI safe house was a nondescript rental in Bellevue. While Leslie tried to maintain normalcy for Faith, cartoons, breakfast, forced smiles, Derek sat with his father in the dining room, watching Jonathan transform into someone else. You're different, Derek observed. I'm remembering. Jonathan checked his weapon methodically. All the things I tried to leave behind when you were born. Were you like them? The men who came. No. I stopped men like them. That was my job. Jonathan met his son's eyes. I've done things I'm not proud of, Derek. Things necessary to keep good people safe. I never wanted you to see this side of me. I'm glad I am. Means you'll win. The simple faith in his son's voice nearly broke Jonathan. I'll keep you safe. That's what matters. Alexander Banks arrived at noon with equipment, surveillance gear, secure communications, a laptop that could crack systems Jonathan couldn't legally access alone. Mandy Spencer pretended not to notice. Russell's gone underground, Alex reported. Abandoned his house, office, everything. But he's got to surface eventually. He'll go for assets, Jonathan said. Money, backup identities, leverage. Men like Russell always have an exit strategy. Mandy's team is monitoring airports, borders. He won't use conventional routes. Jonathan pulled up a map. Russell knows standard protocols. But there's one thing he needs before he runs. Proof I'm dead. Otherwise, I'm a loose end that haunts him forever. You think he'll come for you again? I'm counting on it. Mandy entered, her expression grim. Ricardo Brady, Russell's associate from the photos, just turned up at a warehouse in Tacoma. We've got surveillance. Then let's go. Jonathan grabbed his jacket. This is FBI business. I'm a security consultant assisting your investigation. I know Russell's patterns, his thinking. You need me. Mandy didn't look happy, but she didn't argue. The warehouse district was exactly the kind of place that attracted illegal operations, isolated, industrial, easy to control sight lines. FBI vehicles set up a perimeter while drones provided aerial surveillance. Through binoculars, Jonathan watched Brady supervise the loading of crates into a cargo truck. Weapons, most likely, or laundered cash. Either way, valuable enough to draw Russell's people out. We could take Brady now, an agent suggested. Wait, Jonathan said. He's expecting someone. 20 minutes later, a black Mercedes pulled up. Russell Christian emerged, looking haggard but still arrogant. He wore a baseball cap and jacket, basic disguise, but effective from a distance. There, Mandy said. We move now. No. Russell always has backup. Look at the roof. Through her scope, Mandy swore. 2 snipers covered the warehouse entrance. Russell wasn't taking chances. If we breach, those snipers open up. Could be civilian casualties. Mandy's jaw tightened. We need those shooters down first. I can do it, Jonathan said. Absolutely not. Mandy, I've done this before. Counter-sniper operations, hostile environments. I can neutralize both threats before they know I'm there. This isn't the military. No, it's my family's life. Your choice. Wait for SWAT and risk Russell slipping away, or let me do what I'm trained for. Alex spoke up. He's right. Jonathan's skill set is perfect for this. Mandy struggled with protocol versus practicality. Finally, she handed Jonathan a tactical radio. You have 10 minutes. Miss that window, we breach anyway. Jonathan moved through the industrial complex like a ghost, using shipping containers, and warehouse walls for cover. Years of training overrode the civilian life he'd built. This was muscle memory, instinct honed across a dozen countries against enemies who never saw him coming. The first sniper was sloppy, visible against the skyline, focused on the FBI positions below. Jonathan used a drainage pipe to reach the roof access, moving with patience learned in intelligence work. When he struck, the sniper never made a sound, just slumped unconscious. Jonathan zip-tied him and took his rifle. The second sniper was better trained, constantly scanning. Jonathan couldn't get close without exposure, so he didn't try to get close. He keyed the radio. Sniper 2 has thermal scope. Mandy, I need a distraction. South approach, hot signatures. Copy. 30 seconds later, 3 agents moved into the sniper's sight line, deliberately exposed, drawing attention. The sniper swung his rifle to track them. Jonathan moved. By the time the sniper realized the distraction's purpose, Jonathan had his arm around the man's throat. Another unconscious threat neutralized. Snipers down. Jonathan radioed. You're clear. The FBI breached with overwhelming force. Russell saw them coming and ran, Brady providing covering fire. Agents flooded the warehouse, tactical teams moving with precision. Jonathan watched from the roof as Russell reached a back exit, where Alex waited with 2 federal marshals. Russell's expression when he saw the trap was almost worth everything he'd done. Almost. But when they brought Russell out in handcuffs, the man was smiling, looking directly at the building where Jonathan stood. That's wrong, Jonathan muttered. Russell let them put him in the federal vehicle without resistance. Too easy. Too cooperative. Jonathan's phone buzzed. Unknown number. He answered. Hello, Jonathan. Russell's voice, smooth as ever. Yes, I'm in custody. No, it doesn't matter. Because right now, one of my people is watching your family in that FBI safe house. Room 4B, isn't it? Your daughter likes cartoons. Tom and Jerry, specifically. Jonathan's blood turned to ice. You have a choice, Russell continued. You can testify against me, help the FBI, do the right thing. Or you can back off, tell them you made a mistake, that you have no evidence. If you cooperate, your family lives. If you don't, the line went dead. Jonathan was running before conscious thought caught up, vaulting from the roof to a shipping container, hitting the ground sprinting. Alex saw him and knew instantly something was catastrophically wrong. The safe house, Jonathan gasped. He knows where they are. They drove like madness was chasing them, because it was. Jonathan called Mandy, warned the protective detail, but every second felt like an eternity. When they screeched into the safe house parking lot, everything looked normal. Too normal. Jonathan took the stairs 3 at a time, Alex right behind him. The protective agents were at their posts, looking confused by his panic. Status, Jonathan barked. All clear, sir. No movement. Jonathan kicked open the apartment door. Leslie, Derek, and Faith looked up from lunch, startled but unharmed. Dad, Derek said. What's wrong? Jonathan checked every room, every window. Nothing. No threat. His phone buzzed again. Russell, just a test, Jonathan. Proving I can reach them anytime. The real question is, what are you willing to sacrifice? Jonathan stared at his family, then at the phone. Russell thought he'd won. Thought fear would make Jonathan retreat, compromise, bend. Russell was wrong. Alex, Jonathan said quietly. I need everything. Russell's financial records. His safe houses, his contacts. Everything the FBI has and everything they don't. Jonathan, what are you thinking? I'm thinking Russell just made a fatal mistake. He showed me he's desperate enough to threaten my family again. Which means he's vulnerable. You can't go after him alone. I'm not going to. Jonathan's expression hardened into something dangerous. I'm going to dismantle his entire organization, everyone who helped him, everyone who enabled him. And then I'm going to make sure Russell Christian spends the rest of his life in a cell knowing I destroyed everything he built. Leslie touched his arm. Be careful who you become in the process. I will. But Russell chose this war. Now he'll learn what happens when you threaten a Gordon. Chapter 5. Building the Case. The next 48 hours transformed Jonathan Gordon from victim into strategist. Alex's contacts provided information the FBI couldn't access, not legally. Dark web chatter, offshore account traces, surveillance from private operators who didn't ask questions. But the real breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Christy Christian, Russell's wife, appeared at the FBI office on the 3rd day. 38, impeccably dressed, She looked like a woman who'd finally made a devastating decision. I need protection, she told Mandy, and I'm willing to testify against my husband. In the interview room, with Jonathan watching through one-way glass, Christy laid out the truth. I didn't know at first. Russell was charming, successful, everything I wanted in a partner. We married 5 years ago. She twisted her wedding ring. About 2 years ago, he changed. More secretive, angry, paranoid. He'd disappear for days with vague explanations. Money appeared in accounts I couldn't trace. When did you realize what he was doing? Mandy asked. 6 months ago, I overheard a phone call. Ricardo Brady was threatening him. Something about a shipment that got intercepted. Russell promised it wouldn't happen again. I started investigating. She slid a flash drive across the table. Financial records. Shell companies. Names of everyone in his network. I copied everything. Jonathan entered the room. Christy flinched, but held his gaze. Why now, he asked. Why not 6 months ago? Because 6 months ago, I was still in denial. I told myself I was misunderstanding, that Russell had explanations. Then 3 nights ago, I heard him order your family killed. Her voice broke. He was on the phone in his study. He said, the Gordons know too much. Clean it up. All of them, including the kids. I realized I was married to a monster. You could have warned us. I called 911 anonymously. Gave them your address. Said there was an active threat. It was all I could do without Russell knowing. Jonathan checked with Mandy, who nodded. We got an anonymous call that night. Helped us prioritize response. I can't undo what Russell did, Christy continued. But I can help destroy him. Everything on that drive. It's enough to take down his entire operation. Over the next 2 days, Jonathan and Alex worked with FBI analysts, cross-referencing Christie's data with their own intelligence. The picture that emerged was staggering. Russell's network extended across 4 states, involving port officials, customs agents, and warehouse operators. He'd been trafficking military-grade weapons to buyers in South America, Africa, and Eastern Europe. The profits, nearly $40 million over 3 years, flowed through legitimate businesses, including Gordon Security Consulting. He used our company's credentials to access secure facilities, Jonathan said, reviewing shipping manifests. Every security contract we won gave him another avenue for moving illegal cargo. Francisco Pierce, the corrupt port official, was Russell's primary enabler. For a cut of profits, Pierce altered manifests, misdirected inspections, and eliminated paper trails. The whistleblower who died hadn't been the first. 2 other potential witnesses had suffered accidents in the past 18 months. We can prosecute Russell for trafficking, conspiracy, and murder, Mandy said. This is life imprisonment without parole. Not enough, Jonathan said. What do you mean? This is comprehensive. Russell will lawyer up, claim he was coerced, pin blame on subordinates. Men like him always find angles. Jonathan studied the evidence board. We need something so devastating he can't escape it. What are you thinking? Jonathan pointed to a name on the board. Saul Rios, Russell's attorney. Also on his payroll, facilitating money laundering through legal structures. If we flip Rios, we get testimony that Russell directly ordered criminal activities. No deniability. Rios won't flip. Attorney-client privilege, and he's too invested. Everyone has pressure points. Jonathan pulled up Rios's background. He's got a daughter at Stanford, medical school ambitions. Expensive. If Rios goes down, she loses everything. Alex frowned. That's leverage, but it's also threatening an innocent person. I'm not threatening her. I'm giving Rios a choice. Cooperate and protect his daughter's future, or go to prison and watch her dreams collapse. Mandy looked uncomfortable. We can't officially sanction. Then unofficially, let me have a conversation with Rios. Jonathan. Mandy, Russell ordered my children murdered. I'm trying to do this the right way, but I will get justice. Help me do it legally, or I'll find another method. The implicit threat hung in the air. Finally, Mandy nodded. Rios is holding a meeting at his office tomorrow. We can arrange for you to accidentally encounter him. That evening, Jonathan returned to the safe house. Derek was doing homework. Faith was drawing. Leslie was reading case files. She'd insisted on helping review medical records related to the accidental deaths. They weren't accidents, Leslie said quietly. The whistleblower had brake fluid contamination. The second victim fell from his apartment balcony, ruled suicide, but he had defensive wounds. The third drowned in his pool. even though he was a competitive swimmer. Russell covered his tracks. Not well enough. I've documented everything. It'll stand up in court. Jonathan kissed her forehead. Thank you. Don't thank me. Just end this so we can go home. Derek looked up from calculus homework. Dad, when you talk to Russell's lawyer tomorrow, what are you going to say? The truth. That he's got one chance to save himself and his daughter. Will he take it? If he's smart. And if he's not? Jonathan met his son's perceptive gaze. Then I'll make sure he wishes he had been. The next day, Saul Rios left his downtown office at exactly 6 p.m. Jonathan was waiting by Rios's Mercedes. Mr. Rios. I'm Jonathan Gordon. We need to talk. Rios paled. I don't speak with you without Russell's permission. Russell's in federal custody, facing life imprisonment. You're next on the indictment list. Conspiracy, money laundering, accessory to murder. The FBI has your financial records, your communications, everything. I'm an attorney. I was providing legal services. You were laundering blood money. You knew Russell was trafficking weapons. You helped hide assets used to fund murder. Jonathan stepped closer. But here's the thing. You've got a daughter, right? Stanford, pre-med, brilliant future ahead of her. Rios's expression shifted to protective fury. You leave Maria out of this. I'm trying to. If you go to prison, what happens to her tuition? Her dreams? Everything you've built for her. That's blackmail. No, it's reality. You have one option. Cooperate with the FBI. Full testimony against Russell. In exchange, immunity for your crimes and witness protection. Russell will have me killed. Russell's going away forever. His network is collapsing. Ricardo Brady's already cutting a deal. Francisco Pierce is in custody. You're the last piece. Jonathan handed Rios a card. Agent Spencer's number. Call her in the next hour. After that, the deal expires, and you're on your own. Jonathan walked away, leaving Rios trembling by his car. 43 minutes later, Saul Rios walked into the FBI office and agreed to testify. With Rios's testimony, the case against Russell became ironclad. Direct orders, specific instructions, documented murders. Russell's entire criminal empire laid bare by the lawyer who'd helped build it. But Jonathan knew something the FBI didn't. Russell still had one card to play, and he'd play it soon. Chapter 6. The Trap. Russell Christian sat in federal detention, but Jonathan knew the man too well to believe he was helpless. The smile when they'd arrested him, the confidence in his threats. Russell had a contingency plan. He's got someone on the inside. Jonathan told Alex and Mandy. Police, FBI, courthouse, somewhere in the system, Russell has leverage. We vetted everyone. Vet them again. Russell doesn't make moves without insurance. The answer came from an unexpected direction. Derek, reviewing security footage Alex had provided. The boy had inherited his father's analytical mind. Noticed something odd. Dad, look at this. Derek pulled up footage from outside the FBI office. This car appears 3 times in the past week. Different times, different days. Always the same silver Civic. Jonathan studied the footage. Run the plates. The car belonged to Agent Jeffrey Wills, a junior FBI investigator on Mandy's team. Wills had been present during every briefing, had access to all case files, knew the safe house locations. Son of a bitch, Mandy breathed. Jeffrey's been with the Bureau 8 years. Clean record, good evaluations. Russell got to him somehow. Jonathan pulled Wills's background. Daughter with leukemia. Medical bills. Debt. Russell probably offered cash, enough to save his kid. What do? We use him. Jonathan's mind was already working the angles. Wills thinks he's Russell's lifeline. We make him believe we're moving Russell tomorrow. Transport to federal court for arraignment. Feed Wills the route. Timing, everything. You want to bait an ambush. I want Russell's rescue team to walk into our trap. Once they're in custody, Russell has nothing. No backup, no help, no cards left to play. Mandy was quiet for a long moment. If this goes wrong, people die. If we don't do it, my family stays in danger. Russell will keep trying until he's either free or we're dead. They spent that night planning. The fake transport would use a decoy vehicle, while the real transfer happened an hour earlier through a different route. Jonathan and Alex would be with the decoy team, ready for Russell's people. You don't have to do this, Mandy said to Jonathan. My agents can handle. This is personal. Russell made it personal when he targeted my family. I need to see this through. The next morning, they fed Wills the false information. Jonathan watched the agent's face as Mandy explained the transport plan. Wills's micro-expressions revealed everything. The slight pupil dilation, the extra swallow, the way his hand touched his phone. He bought it, Alex muttered. Now they waited. The decoy transport rolled out at 10 a.m. Armored vehicle, full security detail, weapons ready. Jonathan rode in the follow car with Alex and 4 FBI agents. The route took them through industrial areas with limited traffic, perfect ambush terrain. Eyes up, Jonathan said. They'll hit us in the next 3 miles. It came at the railroad crossing. A semi-truck stalled across the tracks, blocking the convoy. Before they could reverse, 2 vans pulled up behind them, boxing them in. 8 men emerged with military precision, body armor, automatic weapons, coordinated fire teams. Professional operators, not street thugs. FBI, drop your weapons. Mandy's voice boomed through speakers. The gunmen opened fire instead. But Jonathan and his team were ready. The armored vehicle's hidden gun ports opened, returning fire with overwhelming force. The stalled semi-truck revealed FBI marksmen who'd been hidden inside. The vans found themselves surrounded by tactical teams that had been positioned an hour earlier. The gunfight lasted 90 seconds. When it ended, 6 attackers were in custody, 2 dead, none escaped. The lead gunman was Ricardo Brady himself, Russell's right hand, personally leading the rescue attempt. The sight of FBI SWAT instead of an easy target broke something in Brady's confidence. You're going away forever, Mandy told him in the back of a federal vehicle. Unless you cooperate. Russell will have me killed. Russell is finished. His lawyer flipped. His network is dismantled. His rescue attempt failed. He's got nothing except a life sentence. She leaned closer. But you? You could still cut a deal. Testify against everyone. Russell, Pierce, all of them. We'll relocate you. New identity, the works. Brady thought about prison, about dying in a cell or on a prison yard because Russell ordered it. Finally, he nodded. I'll testify. With Brady's cooperation, the last piece fell into place. Direct testimony from Russell's enforcer about murders, about orders given, about the weapons trafficking operation's darkest secrets. Jonathan stood outside the detention center where Russell waited for his formal arraignment. Through the window, he could see his former partner pacing, the confidence finally cracking as news of Brady's capture reached him. Russell's phone privileges had been suspended, his lawyers were distancing themselves, and federal prosecutors were preparing an indictment so comprehensive that no judge would offer bail. It's over, Alex said, joining Jonathan. Russell's done. Not yet. Jonathan's voice was cold. He hasn't faced what he did. Hasn't paid for terrorizing my family. The system will handle it. Life without parole. I need him to understand. To know exactly how thoroughly he lost. That evening, through legal channels and Mandy's reluctant approval, Jonathan was granted 15 minutes to speak with Russell Christian, ostensibly to provide victim impact testimony for pretrial proceedings. They faced each other across a metal table in the federal detention center. Russell looked haggard, the polished veneer finally stripped away. You won, Russell said bitterly. Congratulations. I survived. There's a difference. Jonathan leaned forward. You sent killers to murder my children, Russell. My 8-year-old daughter. My 14-year-old son. While they slept. Business decision. You were a threat. No. It was cowardice. You couldn't face consequences, so you targeted innocents. Jonathan's voice was ice. But here's what you need to understand. I could have killed you. Multiple times, multiple ways. But I didn't. Congratulations on your restraint. I didn't kill you because I wanted you to live with this. Every day in prison, you'll remember how thoroughly you lost. How your empire crumbled. How everyone you trusted turned against you. How a security consultant you thought was weak destroyed everything you built. Russell's jaw tightened. Your lawyers abandoned you. Your wife testified against you. Your enforcer flipped. Your financial network is frozen. Your contacts are running scared. Jonathan stood. And me? I'm going home to my family. We'll rebuild, move on, live our lives. While you rot in a cell knowing you gave up everything and gained nothing. I'll appeal. I'll find angles. No, you won't. Because I made sure of that. Every shred of evidence is ironclad. Every witness is protected. Every avenue you might exploit, I closed. Jonathan moved toward the door, then paused. Goodbye, Russell. I hope prison gives you plenty of time to think about your choices. Jonathan. Don't. We're not partners. We're not friends. We're not anything. You're just another criminal who underestimated the wrong person. The door closed with absolute finality. Chapter 7. Burning Bridges. The case against Russell Christian became federal news. A decorated security consultant who'd helped capture a major arms trafficking ring made for compelling headlines. Jonathan avoided interviews, but the story spread anyway. 10 days after Russell's arrest, Francisco Pierce cut his own deal, offering testimony in exchange for reduced charges. With Pierce's cooperation, the investigation expanded to other corrupt officials. 3 more Port Authority employees, 2 customs agents, and a county judge who'd been dismissing inconvenient cases. The network's scope was staggering. Russell had spent 5 years building corruption infrastructure, bribing officials, cultivating leverage. His operation had moved an estimated $120 million in illegal weapons. He almost pulled it off, Mandy admitted during one strategy session. If you hadn't started investigating when you did, Russell could have operated for years. He got greedy, Jonathan said. Expanded too fast, trusted the wrong people. Classic criminal mistake, believing his own legend. But while the legal case progressed, Jonathan faced a different challenge. Gordon Security Consulting had been irrevocably tainted. Clients canceled contracts. Banks froze accounts pending investigation. Everything Jonathan had built was collapsing. We're ruined, he told Leslie one evening. The company, our reputation, Russell destroyed it all. No, he gave you a chance to start over. Leslie took his hand. You never loved that business anyway. You built it because it was safe, predictable. But you're not a safe, predictable person, Jonathan. What am I supposed to do? Something that matters. Something you're actually passionate about. Derek, who'd been listening, spoke up. You stopped Russell. You protected us. Other people need that kind of help. The idea crystallized over the following weeks. While prosecutors built their case, Jonathan started planning. Not a security consulting firm, something different. Something focused on helping people trapped in situations like his family had faced. He called it Guardian Solutions, a private investigation and protection firm specializing in cases involving organized crime, corruption, and complex threats. Services for people the system couldn't help quickly enough. Alexander Banks signed on immediately. About time you stopped pretending to be a corporate drone. Mandy Spencer, impressed by Jonathan's handling of the Russell case, became an unofficial advisor. I can't partner with you formally, but I can point cases your way. Situations where victims need help the FBI can't provide fast enough. The firm's first client came through an unexpected source, Christy Christian. I know you have every right to hate me, she said, meeting Jonathan in a coffee shop. But I need help. Russell's associates are targeting me. Death threats, vandalism, harassment. They blame me for his arrest. Go to the FBI. I have. They've provided some protection, but it's not enough. These people know how to evade surveillance. She met his eyes. You understand how Russell's people operate. You know how to stop them. Jonathan studied Russell's ex-wife. She'd lost everything too. Home, marriage, reputation. The FBI Witness Protection Program would eventually relocate her. But until then, she was vulnerable. I'll help. But understand this, I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it because letting Russell's people terrorize witnesses undermines everything we accomplished. I understand. Thank you. Over the next 2 weeks, Jonathan and Alex identified 3 individuals targeting Christy. One was a low-level enforcer hoping to earn points with Russell's imprisoned associates. Another was Ricardo Brady's brother, seeking revenge for Ricardo's betrayal. The third was a former client of Russell's who'd lost money when the operation collapsed. Jonathan handled them methodically. The enforcer got a visit from Alex's most intimidating Marine buddies, explaining in vivid detail what would happen if harassment continued. Brady's brother was traced to a motel, where Jonathan delivered evidence of the man's own criminal activities to local police, leverage for cooperation. The former client received documentation proving Russell had been stealing from him too, redirecting anger toward the proper target. Within 3 weeks, the threat stopped. Christy was safe. You're good at this, she said when Jonathan confirmed the situation was resolved. Better than security consulting. This matters more. Guardian Solutions began attracting other clients. A whistleblower facing corporate retaliation. A family dealing with stalking that police couldn't stop. A journalist investigating corruption who needed protection. Each case, Jonathan approached with the same intensity he'd applied to Russell. Methodical investigation, strategic planning, overwhelming execution. He wasn't just solving problems. He was sending a message. People who preyed on the vulnerable had a new opponent. Meanwhile, Russell's trial date approached. Federal prosecutors had built an overwhelming case. Testimony from Christie, Saul Rios, Ricardo Brady, and Francisco Pierce. Physical evidence from shipping manifests, financial records, intercepted communications. Even the attempted prison break provided additional charges. Russell's defense team tried everything: suppress evidence, challenge witnesses, claim coercion. Every motion was denied. Every challenge was refuted. 2 weeks before trial, Russell's lead attorney requested a meeting with prosecutors. "My client wants to plead guilty," the lawyer said. "In exchange, he'll cooperate fully with any remaining investigations." "Why?" Mandy asked. "His position can't get worse. He wants to avoid trial. Avoid having his crimes detailed publicly." "Too late for dignity," Jonathan said. He'd been included in the meeting as a victim representative. "Russell doesn't get to hide." "Mr. Gordon, I understand your anger. You don't understand anything. Russell ordered children murdered. He trafficked weapons that killed people around the world. He corrupted officials and destroyed lives. He faces everything publicly, or I'll make sure every media outlet knows his crimes in explicit detail." The lawyer paled. "That's not your decision." "Actually," Mandy interjected, "Mr. Gordon is right. Russell gave up his right to privacy when he became a criminal. We're going to trial." Russell's response came through his lawyer the next day, a handwritten note delivered to Jonathan via the federal prosecutor's office. "You've won, Jonathan. I acknowledge that. But don't pretend you're better than me. You broke laws too. Threatened people. Used violence. The only difference between us is I had the honesty to admit what I was." Jonathan read the note and smiled coldly. Russell still didn't understand. The difference wasn't honesty. It was purpose. Everything Jonathan had done, the intimidation, the leverage, the calculated force, had been to protect innocence and stop a predator. Russell had done it for profit and ego. Jonathan threw the note away and focused on preparing his victim impact statement for trial. He'd make sure Russell heard exactly what his choices had cost. Chapter 8. Day of Reckoning. The trial began on a cold November morning. Federal courthouse, packed gallery, cameras waiting outside. United States versus Russell Christian had become the most high-profile criminal case in Seattle in years. Jonathan sat with his family in the victim section. Derek wore a suit, looking more adult than his 14 years. Faith stayed home with Leslie's sister, too young for the proceedings. Leslie's hand never left Jonathan's, a steady anchor through the storm. Russell entered in an orange jumpsuit, hands cuffed, the corporate polish completely stripped away. He looked older, diminished. His eyes found Jonathan's across the courtroom, and for a moment, they simply stared at each other. Former partners. Former friends, once upon a time. Now just adversary and destroyer. The prosecution's opening statement laid out the scope of Russell's crimes with brutal efficiency. 3 years of weapons trafficking. $40 million in illegal profits. 2 confirmed murders, 3 more suspected. Attempted murder of the Gordon family. Corruption spanning multiple agencies. Russell Christian built an empire of violence, the prosecutor said. And when that empire was threatened, he tried to murder a family, including 2 children, to protect his secrets. Russell's defense tried to paint him as a businessman who'd gotten in over his head, manipulated by Brady and Pierce. The jury wasn't buying it. Over 3 weeks, witnesses testified. Christie Christian described discovering Russell's crimes, her voice breaking as she explained hearing him order the Gordon family's death. Saul Rios outlined the financial structures designed specifically to launder blood money. Ricardo Brady detailed murders Russell had ordered, weapons shipments Russell had personally supervised. Francisco Pierce, the corrupt port official, admitted under oath that Russell had bribed him with nearly $2 million over 3 years. He needed access, Pierce said. Needed manifests altered, inspections redirected. He paid well, and I looked the other way. Even when people died? The prosecutor asked. Even then. The jury's expressions turned stony. Jonathan took the stand on day 16. The courtroom fell silent as he was sworn in. "Mr. Gordon," the prosecutor began, "tell us how you discovered Russell Christian's criminal activities." Jonathan described it methodically, the financial discrepancies, Alex's warnings, the surveillance at his home. He spoke calmly, factually, letting the events speak for themselves. What happened on the night of October 8th? My son woke me at 2 a.m. He'd seen armed men approaching our house. We escaped with minutes to spare. Jonathan's voice never wavered. We watched from a distance as those men fired weapons into my son's bedroom, into the room where he should have been sleeping. How did that make you feel? Terrified, enraged, determined. Determined to do what? To protect my family, and to ensure Russell Christian never hurt anyone again. Russell's defense attorney cross-examined aggressively. Mr. Gordon, isn't it true you've used violence during this investigation? I defended myself and others when attacked. Yes. You've threatened Russell Christian's lawyer, Saul Rios. I offered Mr. Rios a chance to cooperate and protect his daughter's future. He chose to take it. You orchestrated a confrontation with Ricardo Brady. I helped the FBI apprehend dangerous criminals. Jonathan met the lawyer's eyes steadily. Everything I did was to stop people who were trafficking weapons and murdering witnesses. If you're suggesting I should have done nothing while my family was targeted, you're welcome to make that argument. The lawyer backed off. Attacking a father who'd protected his family from killers was a losing strategy. But the defense's most dramatic moment came when Russell himself took the stand. Against his lawyer's advice, he insisted on testifying. I made mistakes, Russell said, his voice carrying the false sincerity Jonathan recognized from countless business meetings. I got involved with bad people. They threatened me, forced me to cooperate. When Jonathan started investigating, I panicked. I never meant for anyone to get hurt. The attack on the Gordon family, the prosecutor asked during cross-examination. Ricardo Brady acted without my authorization. I didn't order. We have recorded phone calls, Mr. Christian. Your voice ordering clean it up. All of them, including the kids. That was taken out of context. What context makes ordering children's deaths acceptable? Russell had no answer. His testimony collapsed into contradictions and deflections. By the time he left the stand, even his defense attorney looked defeated. The prosecution's closing argument was devastating. Russell Christian is a murderer, a criminal mastermind who built an empire on violence and corruption. He targeted children to protect his secrets. He corrupted officials, trafficking weapons that killed people around the world. The evidence is overwhelming. The testimony is irrefutable. There is only one possible verdict: guilty on all counts. The defense tried to salvage something. Yes, Russell Christian made terrible choices. But he was manipulated, pressured, operating under duress from truly violent criminals. He deserves punishment, but not the life sentence the prosecution seeks. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. When they returned, the foreman stood. On count 1, weapons trafficking, guilty. Count 2, conspiracy to commit murder, guilty. Count 3, attempted murder of the Gordon family, guilty. 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 37 counts, 37 convictions. Russell's face went white. His lawyer slumped. In the gallery, Christy Christian wept, not from sadness, but release. Jonathan felt Leslie squeeze his hand. Derek nodded once, satisfied. Justice wasn't pretty, wasn't dramatic. It was just a jury doing their job, looking at evidence, and reaching the only possible conclusion. Sentencing came 2 weeks later. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s, reviewed the case files with obvious disgust. Mr. Christian, I've been a federal judge for 23 years. I've seen terrorists, organized crime bosses, serial killers. You rank among the worst because you had everything: success, wealth, family, and you threw it away for greed. Worse, when threatened with exposure, you tried to murder children. Russell tried to speak. The judge cut him off. I don't want to hear it. Nothing you say matters anymore. She looked at her notes. Life imprisonment without possibility of parole on the murder conspiracy charges. Additional consecutive sentences totaling 145 years on remaining counts. You will die in federal prison, Mr. Christian. Bailiff, remove him. As Russell was led away, he looked at Jonathan one final time. No words. No defiance. Just the hollow realization that he'd lost everything and gained nothing. Outside the courthouse, media clamored for statements. Jonathan kept it brief. Justice was served. My family is safe. That's all that matters. What about Gordon Security Consulting? That chapter is closed. I've started a new firm, Guardian Solutions. We help people facing situations like my family experienced. Anyone needing protection from criminals the system can't stop fast enough, contact us. Some call you a vigilante. I'm a father who protected his family. I'm a citizen who helped law enforcement stop criminals. If that's controversial, then we have bigger problems than Russell Christian. He walked away with his family, ignoring further questions. Chapter 9, New Beginnings. 6 months later, Jonathan stood in the new offices of Guardian Solutions. 10th floor, downtown Seattle, view of the Sound. Not as prestigious as Gordon Security Consulting's old location, but honest. Earned through work that actually mattered. Alexander Banks managed operations. Mandy Spencer had officially retired from the FBI to join as their law enforcement liaison, her decades of experience making Guardian Solutions exceptionally effective at navigating legal boundaries. 2 former military operators and a cybersecurity expert rounded out the team. They'd taken 15 cases in 6 months. A whistleblower facing corporate assassination attempts. A family terrorized by organized crime. A journalist investigating human trafficking who needed protection. Each case, they'd approached with the same intensity Jonathan had used against Russell. "You're building something important," Leslie said, visiting the office during her lunch break. "People talk about you. The man who took down a criminal empire. We took it down. You, Derek, Alex, Mandy. Not just me. But you led. That's what matters." Derek had started high school, carrying himself with new confidence. The trauma of that night in October was still there. He saw a therapist weekly, but it hadn't broken him. Instead, it had shown him his own strength. "Dad's teaching me defensive tactics," Derek told his friends. "Says I should know how to protect myself. Your dad's kind of a badass." "Yeah, he is." Faith had recovered more easily, children's resilience being remarkable. She still slept with a nightlight, still checked locks before bed, but she laughed more than she worried. Her drawing had improved too. Vivid, confident strokes replacing the tentative lines from before. Russell Christian's appeals had all been denied. He was serving his life sentence at ADX Florence, the Supermax prison in Colorado. Isolated, contained, forgotten by everyone except the people whose lives he'd destroyed. Ricardo Brady was in witness protection, living somewhere in the Midwest under a new identity. Francisco Pierce had received a reduced sentence for cooperation, 15 years at a medium security facility. Saul Rios practiced law in a small town in Montana, his daughter attending medical school debt-free, thanks to the Witness Protection Program's support. Christy Christian had remarried, a high school teacher from Oregon who'd never heard of her ex-husband until their 3rd date. She sent Jonathan a Christmas card that year. "Thank you for giving me a second chance at life." One evening in March, Jonathan received an unusual call, a voice he hadn't heard in years. "Jonathan Gordon? This is Colonel Darren Ryan, Army Intelligence. You don't know me, but I know your work. We've been tracking Guardian Solutions." "Why?" "Because we need people with your particular skill set. Not for military operations, for something else. There are American citizens abroad facing threats from criminal organizations. NGO workers, journalists, business people. The State Department can't help fast enough. The military can't operate in civilian contexts. But someone like you. You want me to run extractions, rescue operations, protection details, high-risk situations requiring someone who understands both legal frameworks and operational necessities." Ryan paused. "Fully sanctioned, appropriately funded, complete legal protection." Jonathan thought about it. More danger, more risk, but also more people helped, more lives saved. "Send me the details. I'll consider it." He discussed it with Leslie that night. "It means more time away, more risk, but it's important work." "You were always going to do important work," Leslie said. "Just took you a while to figure out what that meant. You're okay with this?" "I'm okay with you being who you really are. A protector, a fighter, someone who doesn't walk away when people need help." She kissed him. "Just come home. Always come home." "I will." 3 months later, Guardian Solutions took its first international case. An aid worker trapped in a conflict zone, criminal gangs demanding ransom. Jonathan assembled a team, coordinated with local authorities, and executed a clean extraction. The aid worker returned home safely. No shots fired, no casualties, just careful planning and perfect execution. "You're good at this," Alex said on the flight back. "I know. How long do you think you'll keep doing it?" Jonathan looked out the window at clouds passing below. As long as people need help. As long as my family's safe. As long as it matters. Russell used to say you were too idealistic. That you couldn't make hard choices. Russell was wrong about a lot of things. Back in Seattle, Derek had started training seriously, martial arts, defensive tactics, situational awareness. I want to be like you, he told his father. Be better than me, Jonathan replied. Be someone who never has to make the choices I made. But if you do have to make them, make sure they're for the right reasons. How do I know what the right reasons are? If you're protecting someone weaker, someone innocent, someone who can't protect themselves, that's usually right. If you're doing it for ego, profit, revenge, that's usually wrong. What about what you did to Russell? I stopped a criminal. Protected my family. That was right. If I'd enjoyed it, if I'd drawn it out for satisfaction, that would have been wrong. Jonathan met his son's eyes. The difference between justice and revenge is whether it's about stopping harm or causing suffering. Remember that. Faith was drawing in her room when Jonathan checked on her before bed. What you working on, kiddo? Our family. Look, you're the big one in front, protecting us. The picture showed a strong figure standing between smaller figures and dark shadows in the background. Simple, childlike, but capturing something essential. That's perfect, sweetheart. Dad, are the bad men ever coming back? No, they're gone. You're safe. Because you stopped them? Because we all stopped them. You, me, Derek, Mom. We're a team. Good. I like our team. Jonathan tucked her in, feeling the weight of responsibility and gratitude in equal measure. Russell had tried to destroy his family, and instead had shown Jonathan what truly mattered. Not business success, not money, not reputation. Just this, his daughter sleeping peacefully, his son growing strong, his wife building a life together. Everything else was just details. That night, Jonathan stood on his back porch, looking at the stars. Leslie joined him, bringing coffee. Thinking about Russell? She asked. About how close we came to losing everything. About how different things could have been. But they weren't. You protected us. You won. We won. Never just me. Then we celebrate together. Leslie raised her coffee mug. To second chances. To justice. To family. To family. Jonathan echoed. Somewhere in Colorado, in a concrete cell, Russell Christian stared at walls and thought about all the choices that had led him there. Thought about the empire he'd built and lost. Thought about Jonathan Gordon, who'd beaten him completely. But Russell's thoughts didn't matter anymore. His threats were empty. His power was gone. He was just another prisoner counting days until death, forgotten by the world he'd tried to dominate. Meanwhile, Jonathan Gordon was building something better. Something that would outlast any criminal empire, any scheme, any threat. He was building a life worth protecting. And he'd proven he was very, very good at protection. The war was over. The Guardian had won. And the future stretched ahead, full of possibility and purpose. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your time. If you enjoy this story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.